Hey, what's up, guys? Starting off today, got a fun project for you guys. Been talking for the last 2 weeks about crafting a bookshelf for behind the stream. I'm going to do my best to showcase the creation process for you. Enjoy.
So diving in, first step of this process for me was going to work on the cold saw. Cold saw is a very, very sharp blade with an automatic lubrication system designed to keep what you're cutting cool. What I'm cutting are all the pieces for the shelf and stand components of my custom, one-of-a-kind LED backlit shelf I'm making for my stream studio. I started with the longest pieces first. I adjusted the backstop. I started cutting the shorter pieces. This is a project that's made up of a lot of very simple steps and some more complicated processes, but as you can see, it's just a lot of simple steps in between. Cut the pieces, grind down the edges, make sure they're smooth and safe. Before getting into my actual welding, I made sure to do trial tacks to get used to this welding gun. It's been about 19 years since I've been in a metal shop and done any welding. Wanted to make sure I still had it. After clamping the shelf together, I welded the short pieces to the long pieces. Because the shelves are going to have plywood resting on top of them, I had to use the grinder to grind down any imperfections. Working hard into the day, I found my legs were clamping up. You didn't like my pun? Oh, weld. As soon as I finished one side, flipped around to the other, and repeated the process. I did this 2 more times for the 2 additional shelves. Next, I went to the drill press and started drilling holes and countersinking the holes just in case I ever plan on drilling and screwing in this bookshelf into the floor of my studio for extra support. Man, that looks nice. Next up, setting up the tacks for the end pieces. Clamping down everything, making sure everything is square. Coming in with the gun, tacking the steel in place, and then welding everything together. After welding both end pieces and all 3 shelves together, the only thing left to do is to clamp the final assembly and tack it into place. Measuring out and making sure the shelves were level, clamping everything together, tacking each end of the shelf to the end supports, and then flipping over the shelf itself to do the final welds. After completing all the welding, before putting the shelves together with the plywood, I wanted to make sure that the steel tubing was clean because it gets really greasy. So I grabbed a rag and some lacquer thinner. And then for the side of the shelf that's going to face the stream, I wanted to put a clean coat of black spray paint. I didn't mind the steel tubing by itself. The black spray paint just looks really clean. Black spray paint also works really well if you happen to have a bald spot in the middle of the back of your head. One little spray and you're good to go. Covers it right up. After finishing the metalwork, this was actually the hardest part of the entire project. Right here, I ended up slipping off of the track for the backstop that I made. I didn't have a big enough table saw to be able to make these cuts. So I used a circular saw and some literal elbow grease. Cut 2 more shelves and then started drilling the pilot holes for where the screws are going to attach the plywood to the steel tubing. This isn't difficult work, it's just a lot of steps. Making sure everything's clean and making sure everything lines up correctly. After drilling these pilot holes, clamped down the plywood onto the steel frame and drilled through into the steel. It's not a complicated process drilling these holes. It's just a lot of work. Each one of these pieces of plywood has 10 holes in it. Times 3, 30 holes. 30 pilot holes, 30 holes into the steel, countersinking 30 holes, and then drilling in 30 screws. But it's all worth it in the end. The alternative here would have been just drilling straight in to the steel tubing itself. But because plywood's very soft and you need to put a lot of effort into driving the screw into the steel, it would have pulled in some of the meat of the wood and it would have looked terrible. So to make it look clean, I set up a depth gauge and I countersunk every hole that I drilled. Before drilling in the plywood, I wanted to make sure that each shelf was safe, the edges weren't going to cut anybody or cut me, wasn't going to get any splinters, so I sanded down the edges, the tops and the bottoms of every shelf. Last but not least, drilled in each screw. And voila, the shelf is done. Loaded it up. I drove it from the shop all the way up to my studio. And for the last step, this is the final application of putting the LED strip onto the back of my shelf. I found working with LED tape that sometimes LED strip tape, the adhesive that comes with the tape isn't very strong. So in order to prepare for that, I grabbed some VHB double-sided tape. It's tricky to work with because it sticks to itself. If you twist off one end and apply it, put pressure down on top of it, then peel off the backside, it'll apply to any surface, and then you can easily apply the LED tape to that. And all you gotta do is plug it in, wire it up, and the rest is history. Really proud of this project. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you like this kind of stuff, subscribe to my YouTube. Make sure you say thank you to EasyBot for providing these awesome tunes. See you in the stream, guys.